Good morning, everybody. This is Megan O'Connor. We're going to just do a quick sound check here to make sure that people can all hear us. So if some people could just send us a message, that would be great, and then we'll get started. Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to get started. This is Megan O'Connor, and welcome to our every other week Care Manager informational webinar. We have a lot to cover. I do want to start out with some very sad news that we have tied to one of our care managers in the North Country. We had a newer care manager named Catherine Straight, who unexpectedly passed away this past weekend. And I'd really like to say a few words that I got from Jennifer Allen and Sarah Stone about Catherine, and just do a moment of silence, just, tied to really, respect and sadness tied to Catherine's death. So Catherine was a very kind and caring person. Although she only worked with us for a short time, she really established some deep connections with her coworkers and the families we support. She began her career as a direct support professional, and after 20 years, she left the career to obtain her bachelor's degree, and her hard work and determination really paid off. After that, she began working in a group home for troubled teens, but her love of the field found her returning to her roots when she accepted her current position of care manager. Kathy was the kind of person who would jump in and help whatever was needed. Her care for those we support was genuine and sincere. Her sudden passing has really shaken her community of Keysville, where she lived most of her life. And we really want to, just take a few moments to, in respect of Catherine's passing. Her loss is significant, and she'll be missed. Okay, we will now begin our webinar. Sorry, to have that bad, very sad news. Okay, so we have a very packed agenda. We are going to start, I'm not going to walk through all these topics. You can all see them on the screen, but we're going to start with Jim Moran doing some CEO remarks. Jim.
So thank you, Megan. And yes, very sorry to hear about the loss of one of our family members. Very sad to hear that. So I wanted to cover a couple of topics, and one is both of these, go back to some of the things that Ann and I, when we've been out in the beginning, before we actually got started, and we were doing all of our road shows, as we call them, getting out, meeting everybody. In terms of individuals, families, and in many respects, the workforce. We did individual agency meetings with the workforce to kind of talk about care design and speak about it from the perspective of the workforce as well. And one of the things we had talked about is flexibility of the workforce and the need for that. And I know there's always concerns about how do we balance flexibility for the workforce with accountability of the workforce, and especially when you're dealing with the Medicaid program, it kind of intensifies around the issue of accountability. So one of the things as an organization, and yes, we're kind of only 4 months old here, but that is a very important and significant issue of making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable in dealing with the Medicaid program. So I just wanted to touch a little bit about on the work schedule flexibility. I know there's been some questions raised around our recent piece we put out on time, and so in terms of workforce flexibility, work schedule flexibility, we've talked about obviously being open for care managers to be able to work schedules that are in the range of 7 to 7 every day. We talk about doing schedule adjustments through the supervisor to allow flexibility of work schedules, both in terms of the workforce, as long as we're able to meet the needs of individuals and families, that those adjustments can be made. What's not acceptable is not working your schedule, your full schedule, and not charging time. That is not acceptable. So I think it's a balance between being flexible with your hours and your schedule, with still performing. If you work a 35-hour schedule, you're working 35 hours. If you're working a 40-hour schedule, you're working a 40-hour schedule. So it's really a matter of ensuring that we're doing that, that each of you are doing that, and all of us are doing that, not just you, all of us in the organization. The one area that I know there's been lots of questions about, and people have quoted me all over the place about, Jim promised that we'd be able to work from home, and that is correct. I did say that, but people forget the other part of the conversation, which is, but it's not going to happen on July 1st. So we have a work group, and I think there's going to be a little bit of a conversation about that today on the webinar here. But I just wanted to say we are committed to getting that launched. But it has to be developed around a policy and how that's going to work. Because while we know that's important to you to have that kind of flexibility, for many of you who want that, there's also legal responsibilities around how that works, and insurance issues for the organization. So we have to figure all that out as part of the process. So we do have a work group, and Megan and the team will get into that a little bit later as to how that will work. But we are committed to making that happen from the workforce perspective. So just to let you know that I'm not backing away from our commitment to kind of get that launched. Actually, I think if we get this done, it's actually going to be happening sooner than we had anticipated, quite honestly. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and I've said this when Ann and I have started going out to the field and visiting the locations, and we're going to be doing a lot more of that in the coming weeks and months. But the other thing is, as I've been out and even on, I think, maybe one of these calls or webinars, I think I've mentioned this, is that we are, we're working, Ann and I are working with our finance department. We're evaluating our year-end spending, where we are against our revenue, and seeing, as I've said, what we can do to further and enhance the staff's compensation. So we are doing that. We're also in the process of looking at next year's budget in terms of what that will look like, projecting. Right now, obviously, we're 4 months in, so it's kind of hard to get a complete picture of how we will look going forward exactly. But the point is, we're doing our best to assess that, and obviously, as part of that, we'll be looking to see what we can do with respect to compensation for the workforce. So not only as we end the year, but also as we look into the new year, as to what we may be able to do from a compensation perspective. Now, that compensation could take on different forms of payment. So, and that would include looking at benefits and things of that nature as well. So, my commitment is that, as soon as we can, we'll be speaking to this. We have an upcoming board meeting this month where some of this will be discussed. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to come back with something. When is the next session, Megan?
The next webinar is the 15th. 15.
So it's possible we may have some information finalized on or about that date. But as soon as we do, well, obviously we'll come back and talk to everybody about what we think we're able to do financially for the workforce. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Megan.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, so now we're going to turn it over to Lisa Reese for human resource updates. We have down time and attendance policy clarification, and also an update on the working from home workers that Jim just mentioned. So Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. So, I issued the time and attendance policy, and it did create a bit of a buzz, especially the portion where we talk about not being able to work from home. And I want to clarify, kind of to add to what Jim had said, with regard to working from home, and we do have a working from home work group that has met once, and we'll be meeting again very soon. Working from home takes the shape in 3 different ways. And I think that with regard to this policy and the statement of working from home, there are some of you out there that are working from home with a structured policy that you may have had with your former employer. And what we had committed to was that we were not going to, at least initially, change the terms of that arrangement, and that if it was working for you, then it will continue at least during the transition until Care Design has its own working from home policy. So with that kind of working from home policy, it might mean that you and your supervisor agree to a specific day, and that's the day that you work from home. And there are terms and conditions that will come with that provision, but it's an agreement and it's structured, right? And then there are other instances where you may work from home because it just makes good business sense that you start your day at home because you've got an ISP review that's close to your home, and it's at 10 o'clock, so you start your day, from home, or you may end your day from home because you've got a meeting that's close to your home, and it doesn't make sense to drive all the way back to the office when you're so close to your home already. So there are those other instances that have allowed to be, we know that these instances are occurring. These are done with supervisor approval, though. I mean, that is the key here, is that your supervisor is aware of it, they have approved it, or your director has approved it. It's not something that can be done. I mean, we want to do the right thing from a good, just common sense and good business sense standpoint. And so this policy was not intended to say that we wouldn't be able to continue to do that. And those kinds of instances will also be addressed in a working from home policy, because there are 3 provisions within that, right? So there's the structured working from home, there are these sporadic instances where it happens from time to time and it might make good business sense to do it, and what are the decision points that a supervisor would have around allowing someone to do that. And then there's the third instance of working from home, which might be because the office is closed for an emergency, the power is out, or for weather-related instances. So we'll be addressing that in a working from home policy as well. So, I guess I just want to quell some of the concerns and fears that people have that we're not going to be allowing or looking at those second instances that I talked about, where it just makes good sense to continue to do that. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. So I just wanted to speak to that, and we'll be keeping the group updated on this working from home policy, but I just wanted to address that piece. Megan, did you have anything else that you wanted to add with regard to that?
No, I just want to really, I guess, just add on to what Lisa said and Jim, that this work group that we convened, I think, has really good representation across the state, and we're getting very good feedback. And, we're very close, I think, to having some policy put together. And, we look forward to certainly keeping everybody up to date on that and adding really some clarity that's needed tied to this issue.
Right. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about, within the time and attendance policy, there were a couple of examples where you would be able to, or where you may find yourself starting your day or ending your day from an alternate work location than your normal work location, and that your travel to that location exceeds your normal commute, right? So there were a couple very specific examples there, and perhaps what I didn't give an example for is when you are attending a training for the day that is at an alternate work location. But, there are connections that can be made with other instances besides starting your day at an ISP or a meeting with an individual, where it's the same concept, right? So that if you are traveling to a location that is going to take you a lot longer to get there, so you've got additional miles and you've got additional time, that we will compensate you for that. We'll compensate you for the time, but it's important to note that you don't clock in until you arrive at that work location, because that's when you're actually working. You're not beginning work when you leave your home. You're beginning work when you arrive at your work location. So you clock in there, but if it took you an extra half hour or an hour to get to that location that day, that's when you make a note to your supervisor for an additional 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever the time is, so that time can be added to your timesheet. And that is a very specific pay code called travel time, and it's built in Paycom. And so that, you know, we're compensating you for that time. And that time does count toward overtime as well. So, unlike PTO, which doesn't count toward overtime, travel time does. And it's the same thing with mileage. If you normally commute 20 miles to get to work, and because of this travel to an alternate location, you've traveled 30 miles or 40 miles, you should be putting in for the difference between what you normally drive and what you have driven on that day that you've gone to an alternate location. Okay, so that works on both ends of the day. And then, of course, you know, I mean, part of your job is bebopping around and traveling to different areas throughout the course of the day. And that's all time traveled in the course of your day. You stay on the clock for that travel. Where you're not on the clock is in your travel home or your travel to work at the beginning and end of the day. Okay, so hopefully that's clear for everyone. You may get questions, Megan, which I can answer afterwards because I can't stay for the entire webinar this morning, and I apologize for that, but I just wanted to
Thanks, Lisa.
clarify.
Holly came in and had one other update. She wanted everybody to know that HR is going to be sending an email out that you're going to receive tied to a future point in time where there will be fingerprinting done of all employees of Care Design New York and the other CCOs. And there'll be instructions in that email. It's essentially a consent that everybody has to complete and sign. There'll be instructions that clearly tell you what you have to do, where it has to go. So those will be coming in batches starting the end of this week, just so everybody knows that will be coming.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to move on to care management priorities. We do have a lot to cover, so some of these things are we're just going to touch upon and provide further information in the future. We want to do a spotlight on customer service. This is something that we cover also in our new employee orientation. We can never tune into this issue enough. So just to stay very focused on ensuring that despite the stress of the job, that our interactions are positive in nature, that we are focused always on the person and their family. Our job is to keep people happy, to help to meet their needs, and to provide the best care management services we can. We really want Care Design New York to be the place that has that best reputation, and you are all really on the front line with how we're defined.
At that point, Megan, I think I need a care manager. Somebody's always going to keep me happy.
Okay, yeah.
That would be great.
That's what we all do,
Wow.
Jim, come on.
Isn't that Desiree?
That's Desiree. Wow,
Desiree, care manager.
It's the village, no, think the village, as Dan says. Anyways, I'm sorry.
So the other thing I just want to highlight along those lines is, generally speaking, we want to make sure that we have a responsive approach to, in particular, individual and family phone calls or outreach to us. So in general, we do look to have return calls made within 1 business day. And, you know, we recognize there may be some interfering factor that can't be done. And we should, you know, not go past really a 48-hour window of time. If it is going to be a situation where that needs to happen, maybe you're off for a period of time, you should definitely work out some type of coverage plan, especially for people that you know might be frequent flyers that call a lot or have maybe some pending issue that's really important. So just making sure that we really stay into that. And the other thing I just want to highlight is that there's been a lot of feedback out in the field, and individuals and families are, you know, hearing about some Medi-Sched challenges and other things from CCOs, and it's really important that we really try to, as much as possible, keep that seamless to individuals and families, that we don't want them to have to bear the weight of that burden that we're all, you know, working through. And we're trying to stay as solution focused as possible, really, with all of this. Instead of the glass is half empty, the glass is half full. And it's something that definitely I think we've all seen improvement with. But we just want to make sure that that's not flowing over to individuals and families we support. Ann?
Yeah, I just want to say, we don't want them to worry unnecessarily that their benefits or their services are going to be impacted by any of this. We will work it out as a system and make sure that that doesn't happen. And That's what it translates for families and individuals. I'm not going to be able to get my service authorized. I'm not going to be able to get the supports that I need. And that's just unnecessary angst that we want to make sure that we're not conveying to families. We're not trying to hide things from families, but we will work out the system stuff. This is not their burden, it's our burden, and it's the administration's burden to figure out. The other thing I wanted to say too around responsiveness to individuals and families is that you should expect the same responsiveness within Care Design New York too. You should expect that from your supervisors. Supervisors should be doing that for staff members. Administration should be doing that. And if you're having problems that isn't a standard that we are living up to, please be communicating with your supervisor and move that up the chain, because we don't want to just expect that. We all want to provide that as well.
Thanks, Ann. Okay, just very quickly, the other thing we want to spotlight is really our roles in, every day in what we do is ensuring that individuals have timely access to supports and services. And OPWDD did provide feedback to all the CCOs that service authorizations have decreased since July 2018, and we really want to make sure that it's all hands on deck with our focus to do everything we can to try to advocate and ensure that we're helping people to access services and supports they need. So please make sure to continue to, do what you did in the MSC world, but make sure that we're now approaching it under the care management, health home care management requirements. Work with your supervisors and team to brainstorm challenges, bring any systemic issues, up the chain here so that we can try to also leverage our role as a CCO in accessing supports and services for people that Care Design supports. And as a reminder, the service authorization memo OPWDD sent September 6, 2018. People probably have multiple versions of it. I know we've sent it more than once, but we did just resend it. Please take the time to review it and become familiar with it. It's very, very important. As also the OPWDD request for service authorization form. Everybody should have that. And also the service amendment form. Supervisors will be redistributing that information to all of you, but we just want to make sure that those are really the vehicle to access the OPWDD services, and that everybody has it and that we're full steam ahead with this. Okay, some other care management priorities. Again, I know we've had this as a focus, and this really does still need to be a focus, is ensuring that we have thorough and timely documentation for our care management activities. And, the requirements, as everybody knows, are not the same as Medicaid service coordination. And we expect that we have contemporaneous documentation to support the activities and the great care management that you're delivering. And we do look to, within 24 hours of service being rendered, that in general, people are documenting in Medi-Sched. And please make this a priority. People should not be waiting to the end of the month or into the following month to document care management activities. There might be some very few situations where that happens, but that is something that we need to ourselves really shift to a more timely approach with our documentation to support our care management.
Yeah, I just want to, on that point, Megan, I do try to keep track of that. I look at that very carefully, obviously for multiple reasons, but the timeliness of recording the information is critical from multiple levels, but obviously from a compliance perspective, the longer you do an activity, and the longer you take to do the notes or whatever it is, the more opportunity for that not to be accurate. And so it really has to happen. I've been looking at October. October seems to be in a similar pattern where things don't seem to be always getting in timely. So this is an important point, and we can't stress it enough that that needs to happen. So again, we really need this to be a priority, of the workforce, going forward.
Okay, we're gonna now go to the IM and Metasket and Life Plan updates. Turning it over to Lori.
Can you just click it because of the bulletin points? I mean, I left animation in there accidentally. Good morning, everybody. Yes, we can. Megan can get all my bullet points up there because I forgot to take the animation out.
So fancy, Lori.
I had a moment of inspiration yesterday with all the Halloween candy that I've been consuming. So anyway.
came from too.
Yeah. No, actually, we'll talk about that later. So this week's news, the IM app, we're now on version 202.51. Big change that occurred with that's impacting you guys is now you may be getting a kickback on your ICD-10 codes if you've used them, saying that they're incorrect. When the database was uploaded, it added a period at the end of those numbers. So Metasket isn't recognizing those numbers, and it's going to kick you back, so you just have to retype them in. Yep, I have sent it up to them and asked what happened. We think that in this particular case, it was not Metasket's issue. Actually, we think it's how the data file came from the owners of the ICD-10 world. So yes, we can do this. It's just a little quick retype the number in. All right, next thing with the IM assessment is just a reminder, those blue buttons that you see on the screen on the IM app, that's what happens when you push those buttons. So if it says check in, when you push the button, that's what happens. And if it says continue, when you push the button, that's what happens. There continues to be a lot of confusion about that. So just remember, the blue button is not the status, it's what happens when you click it. All right, here's my favorite, POMs and IPOPs. Yes, you can. So we know that the IM is not completely feeding over to the life plan, and we're feeling a little stuck with the technology, right? Well, if you use the IM assessment and generate your POMs and IPOPs, and you can see those in the summary section, you can manually add those into your life plan and keep on trucking. I sent those instructions out earlier this week. You will have to still have 2 POMs and 3 goals in the life plan, otherwise you can't submit it. But the moral of that story is, yes, you can continue to work on your life plan to get to a virtually completed life plan in the absence of the IM application, talking to the life plan application. So let me know. We're going to cover that more in depth in training. You've got the guide that was sent out to you guys, so that should be awesome. I know one of the problems you guys are having is you don't have provider agencies, all the provider agencies you need. On the slide is a list that we're working on to make those assignments. If you see something that really you need that's not in there, please let me know and we'll add them in. Authorizations is a piece that the whole system is kind of paused on right now, and that's because we need some guidance from OPWDD on what those authorizations look like, and we know you guys are getting error messages that say authorizations are not completed, and that's because OPWDD and the CCOs and Metasket all owe you guys an answer, and we're working together to get that answer for you. Also,
just one point on that, Lori. So on Monday, the 5th, I think we have a call with OPWDD on this very issue. So hopefully early next week, I'm hoping that the meeting is productive on Monday. And we have answers to then provide out to. So all the CCOs are kind of stuck on this point, as Lori said. So we hope to have an answer on Monday.
Right. So, and the same thing with frequency, quantity, and time when you're assigning goals to providers. I've chatted with our care management team here, and they've advised that we fall back to the old ADM requirements. So if you can remember those from the MSD days, you can add them in as a placeholder. If you need to add in ongoing, you can temporarily till we can get you better guidance in writing. And that is coming to get that, because we know that kind of is a stopping point. But the moral of the story is you guys can get right up to that authorization point piece and get those life plans done, poised, sitting and ready. And if in doubt, what you need to do, life plan. Write a life plan, because yes, you can. All right.
You build it into my head.
You can do it.
Wow.
All right, last thing is thanks to the individual out there, and I did not write down your name, I'm so sorry, who sent me the metaskeleton that's still sitting in her closet. There are frozen notes that are on your task board, on your task calendar. We know that. It is not, unfortunately, high on the priority to get them off. The priority is to stop them from occurring and figure out why they're occurring, and then get your IAM to talk to your life plan, and then hopefully we'll get to a phase when we can get those off. But just because Halloween is over does not mean the metaskeletons are going back in the closet. Sorry. All right.
Thanks, Lori.
You're welcome.
Hey, Lori, what about the comments with the IAM?
Oh,
Want me to
yeah.
explain that?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Courtney Ortiz from our data analytics, quality and data analytics unit.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Another thing you may be seeing in Metasched when you're logging an activity, depending on what name you're choosing, is in the comments box, you might see something that says IAM task or workflow task. That was something I actually went in and did in prep of revising all of our task lists. We need to be able to identify which tasks are IAM and which tasks are associated with workflows, so those are never inactivated, they're just hidden from your drop-down. So that's kind of a first step, and next step will be to revise and hide those tasks so those won't populate any longer.
Yeah, when if you see them, just delete them when you're logging a note.
Right.
Okay, thank you. So life plans. Life plans are now due as of November on, as we know, for the individuals we support, and all have to be completed by the end of June 2019. So care managers should really be tracking life plans for the people on your caseload, and work with your supervisor or your management team with any questions or if you need assistance. And we are going to be providing further guidance through Lessons with Lori, I know this week, and then we have other future topics tied to life plans. So obviously a major priority of ours.
Just one question, Megan. Is it clear that people know that for new people, when a life plan has to be in place by, right? That's clear?
Yeah.
Well, this Friday, there's a special webinar at 1 o'clock.
That's a good
which-
entry for you.
Yes, yes, which I will also be scheduling a second time for the following week. I just have to look at my calendar, just so we have two different options. But we're going to go over how to do life plans for new enrollees. And I think it's maybe the second or third slide gives you all the due dates. So if you had a new enrollee that came on August 1, this is when the life plan's due, 9/1, this is when the life plan's due, 10/1, 11/1. So if you haven't signed up for that webinar, I would encourage you to do so. It will be recorded, and we can also make sure to get slides out to people. And like I mentioned, I'm going to try to schedule a second date for next week. So if somebody couldn't make this Friday, hopefully you can make the second time.
And then the second part of that is for folks who have their annual ISP is due in November.
So that would be a life plan now, and that would be something that I know staff are already working on, or absolutely need to be working on that as well for people that are would have been due for an ISP. Now it's a life plan, and that's what has to be done in the month of November. Okay, so switching gears, the CAS assessors issue that I know we've spoken about many times, we have a change here, so we have some good news that we now have a signed agreement with Maximus and all the CCOs, so we can now share information with the CAS assessors, and I know that there are many efforts of outreach because the CAS assessors are really trying to catch up on backlog. So the regional care manager, regional directors will be advising of the CAS assessors and providing support to all of your teams. We have had a number reach out, and it's absolutely fine that you can appropriately share the information for individuals on your caseload, and we'll be continuing to work with all of you because, certainly the numbers are pretty large, and we're trying to manage this in the best way possible. So Danielle, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, just that we're, regularly communicating with Maximus. I just had a call with them this morning. There's 25 sort of tests. We started off with 25 people to kind of go through and begin rolling that process forward. But then they're going to come 100 at a clip every week. So it sounds like a lot of people, but I guess when you serve 25,000-ish people, it's not quite as many as it seems. But they indicated that they are going to try to, sort of spread the wealth and not, overwhelm any one particular region of the state. So that information will be being shared through the regional directors, as Megan mentioned.
And do we still have the outstanding issue of who the list is for OPWDD employees who are, as well as?
Yeah, I did get an updated list from Maximus, of only the Maximus assessors. I did request an updated list on OPWDD assessors, but I haven't seen anything.
Good.
Okay, so Choices access update. Christine, I don't know, do you want to give a quick update?
Sure, yep, thanks. So in general, we are seeing some movement in Choices access. It's still slow, but we are getting there. And we're also seeing some success with getting folks squared away who have been notified that they have access, but that they have not been able to successfully log in for, a variety of reasons. So lots of people have been reaching out to me, and we have gotten to a point where external provisioning seems to have pinpointed an issue with some folks, bless you, who've been having difficulty, getting through the registration process. So I would just say if you have been notified that you have access, but you haven't been able to log in successfully, please contact me, and I'll be happy to walk you through the process and see if we can, get you a little bit further along. In the end, we are starting to recommend that people with more frequency or more volume reach directly out to external provisioning because we have gotten to a point where they actually are looking a little deeper into accounts and are providing a greater assistance than they had in the past. So I'm hopeful, and but please reach out to me, and if you are stuck and you haven't been able to get assistance from external provisioning or whatever, reach back out to me, let me know that that's the situation, and we'll see if we can help you navigate further at OPWDD to get help.
Thanks, Christina. Okay, Lisa Getman is going to provide a quick compliance update to us. Lisa.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So the compliance team continues to do a lot of internal auditing. They're also out to various programs saying hello and trying to meet some of the care managers out there. So thank you for your hospitality as they make their ways around. Just a couple things that we are seeing that I thought it would be good to remind and talk to people about. The privacy notices. This is required under the HIPAA law that we provide the care design privacy notice to every single person that we provide services to. There seems to have been some confusion about if everybody needed them or which groups of people needed them. So I just wanted to clarify that every single person that receives services through Care Design needs a privacy notice provided to them. And there's an acknowledgement form that they can sign off on indicating that they have received it. The privacy notice and the acknowledgement forms, right now they are in the M Drive, and I know the Chromebook work group recently started a new drive, so those forms will be going into that drive as well. There are multiple languages the privacy notices are in. There's English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Korean, Russian, and Chinese. So whichever language you need, you can certainly find that form there. So if you could just review and make sure that you have this for everybody that you support. If you find any are missing, please work in obtaining them as soon as possible. Another thing is the person-centered planning notice. Again, this is something that's required for every person we provide services to. So if you do not have these can also be found in the M Drive. So you can find that form and have that completed as well. Did you want to add anything?
No, well, in terms of the person-centered planning notice and also the privacy notice, I just did want to mention for new enrollees, so people who are coming into us, brand new through our intake department, our intake coordinators are completing these forms with the new enrollees, and they should be scanning and uploading them to that individual's file attachment section in their Medi-Sched record. So when you do get a new person on your caseload, those should have been completed, but you should still be checking to make sure that they are there and they are complete. But that's part of the intake coordinator's workflow.
Thank you.
Okay. And because we are so into the records so much, we certainly want to start a new theme here in the webinars and compliment some very outstanding care managers. These are care managers that when you read their notes, they literally will give you goosebumps because the quality of services that they are providing are just absolutely phenomenal. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and just recognize Tiffany Thompson, Kristen Trim, and George McKay. There are certainly many, many more, and certainly with the volume of people that we support, we can't get through everybody's records every week, but I just wanted to highlight these three people and just say a little quick note about each of them. So for Tiffany Thompson, Tiffany does an excellent job of documenting her high-quality care management activities. Her notes paint a picture of the overall status of the person supported and clearly documents her care management actions. It is very easy for the reviewer to really understand the story, and it is clear that Tiffany is providing excellent quality services to those she supports. Follow-up between visits and phone call to phone call is clearly documented, leaving no loose ends. Tiffany also conducted multiple face-to-face visits far and above what was normally required to ensure the health and well-being of the person supported, which again illustrates her commitment to the person she supports. It is very obvious that Tiffany provides extremely high-quality services and therefore naturally meets the compliance standards. For Kristen also does an excellent job documenting critical medical issues of a person she supports as well as the needed follow-up. Kristen also is able to successfully maintain communication with a difficult and concerned parent. It is apparent that the parent and also legal guardian requires additional time and resources, and Kristen has consistently and clearly documented her efforts and the quality of services for the person she supports and also with the communication with mom. Kristen appears to be compassionate, caring, and diligent about supporting the individual despite any difficult challenges she encounters. The level of quality in her work is evident, and documenting her high-quality services that she consistently provides naturally meets the and exceeds compliance standards. And George McKay. George has provided phenomenal care management services and very thorough documentation that highlights the needs of a person he supports along with his care management efforts. George introduced himself to a person that was newly added to his caseload, and the support he provided far exceeded the basic requirements. That included referrals, clear documentation of follow-up, and coordination between service providers. It was very clear reading the notes that he took the time to not just introduce himself as somebody's new care manager, but really took the time to learn from the person what they wanted and needed support with, and then he made it his mission to assist the person with the necessary applications, follow-up, navigating a complex system, and he remained in constant communication with the person as well as service providers to ensure the person's needs and wants were adequately being addressed. George demonstrates the highest quality services and clearly documented his efforts. George naturally meets and exceeds compliance standards. It's amazing to see not only the assistance he has provided in less than a month from the first time meeting somebody, but the ability to establish such a warm, trusting, and open rapport. So congratulations to those three care managers.
I just want to add something to that. I think this is tremendous examples, and I think that's what Lisa's point is. We have probably many care managers that this is their day in, day out daily life, and it's important that it's documented. And I just want to say this is really the hallmark of what we believe we're about as an organization. This is what we strive to do every day and work through the challenges, and it sounds like at least one of the examples, as oftentimes is the case, the family is more challenging than the individual at times. And working through those, we know that's a challenge for all of you, but kudos. But these are the things that we really want to drive. It's about above compliance. right? It's about quality at the end of the day. So I just want to say, and I recognize these three individuals, staff, but, feeling that, our workforce is committed to this day in and day out. So I just wanted to say, especially thank you to folks for going above and beyond.
Yep, so just exactly what Jim said. When you're providing quality services and then documenting them, you're always going to meet and exceed any standard that we could ever put in place.
Thanks, Lisa. So that's going to be one of our future features here of our webinar. Okay, so switching gears now, we're going to an IT update, and Devin, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay, take it away, Devin.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good morning. Just a special thanks to everyone with IT support and emailing and calling us and understanding the gravity of the work that everyone is doing, and sometimes things might be slower than it should be. I appreciate you guys understanding that and supporting us at the same time. So we're definitely trying our best to ramp things up on the IT side for supporting everyone. Couple of things that wanted to just bring to everyone's attention is, one on the slide here is the DOH security requirements that we have to do to not only with DOH but also with the IPA and everything to secure PHI and everything else, all of the data that we manage and support. We're going to turn on the multi-factor authentication tomorrow at around 5 o'clock or so. And that means come Monday morning, you are all required to have 2 different methods of authentication. Meaning one is your email address that you currently have, and the other is using your iPhone as a text code that you will get as the second form of authentication. And that added a lot of security to our environment, because we find in the past with, as we've experienced with spoofing emails or people taking over people's email addresses and so forth, that once someone has your email address, they have to also have your cell phone to be able to get authenticated, to get access to the system. So that's more unlikely to happen. So I just want to forewarn everyone that you should make sure the phone number you add into the system, you have that phone number with you all the time to log into the system, or else you will not be able to get in. Any questions? Or we'll have questions later on, right?
Yeah, we'll answer them at the end, Devin.
Okay.
You or Jim, you guys are going to be sending out an email, right, with the instructions and screenshots on this?
Yes, we will do.
Okay,
Thank you, Megan, for that. We will definitely do that. I guess we could do it later today or tomorrow, and another follow-up tomorrow, just to let everybody aware of it, because it takes some used to. So we definitely will be here to support everyone.
Okay.
The next slide is...
That's the only slide I have for you.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
Oh, well, the Chromebook Focus Group, actually, you're a part of that too, but I think Colleen Hellman was going to kind of walk us through the updates, and Devin, you can certainly feel free to chime in as well. So actually, I'm going to turn it over to Colleen Hellman and Nancy Shea.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, Colleen?
Yes, okay, great. So I think I'll start with some of the focus group stuff, and then Nancy will pick it up with the training updates.
Okay.
All right, so the focus group has done a lot of different things based on some of the concerns and challenges that the care managers have had with the Chromebook, specifically the OneDrive. So we've really worked together with IT and representatives of care managers within the field who have a lot of experience, and were able to voice the concerns of fellow care managers. So in just a few minutes, I'll show you a SharePoint site that's been developed called the Care Manager Network Share. And it's a way that we can share information as an intranet page. And it's also where we can house documents. So the idea would be that we would move documents that are currently on the M Drive to this document section of the Network Share site. And we've already moved all the documents, or at least have put the documents that are on the M Drive also on this site, and added some additional ones that were seen as being helpful to have them on this website as well. One of the other things that IT has been working on is making sure that the OneDrive stays mounted. We know that that's been a big concern with the MyDrive being kind of a temporary folder for documents and it pointing directly to there because it's a Google product. But they're working on making sure that the OneDrive can be mounted on the desktop, and that means that your documents could automatically go there rather than having to go to the MyDrive and then upload it to the OneDrive. So they're really close to a solution and been working really hard on that. I think this update is something that had been a concern of the focus group, but I know that Megan has shared this as far as using encryption for OPWDD, that they're automatically secure now when sending it. And some of the PDF documents for OPWDD for care managers, we have them now, we've gotten them from a few different sources, and they are now on this SharePoint site, and they should be editable on your OneDrive. So we're still working through that to make sure that they're working on all settings, but for the most part, they seem to be working on the Chromebooks. All right, so this is what the Network SharePoint site looks like. So at the top, you'll see some news and updates, and this can be updated based on information that's shared in this webinar and in other information that different leadership wants to share. We have a section for the shout outs, and that will lead you to a subpage. You'll kind of see it on the left-hand side as well. There's some quick links there, and it's some of the Care Design tabs that automatically come up when you open your Chromebook, in addition to some other links such as registration for webinars, choices, OPWDD, the Metasced Sandbox, Metasced Coordinate, all of that. Megan, are we able to share the screen or no?
Yeah, I can do it right now.
Okay. Just because I've made some updates to the site that I think would be helpful to show. Okay, are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So similar to that screenshot, down here we have the document section here. It's actually a site on the side. It's a subpage. So this was put together by Erica Stevens, one of the care managers as part of the focus group. She put together a quick little slideshow on how to access the documents and pretty easily save them to your OneDrive and be able to edit them. Down here, there's a calendar that's embedded that is just view only. So it's not something that you should add to your calendar automatically without registering for them. But if you were to click on one of them, there's a link here to register. So there's a few different ways you can access them. There's links on the quick links page. There's if you're already signed up for webinars, you're already getting them in your email, but just trying to have a place for information to be shared easily for care managers. We have the Lessons with Lori webinar. We have Danielle's from Friday on here. And then the OPW SLMS training, we put these on here, the ones that are posted on their website, just a way that would be easier than having to, for care managers to always have to check the calendar on SLMS. We'd have it here, so you'd know, and then you could click on it, and then you would, this link here would bring you to SLMS, so that way you could register. All right, so we can continue to build that out and put more events that go on in the fields that affect care managers, whatever would be helpful. Here are the links that I had talked about earlier. You click on the shoutouts. I could also have clicked that site. Brings you here. These are the ones that were sent out a few weeks ago. Here's the document section that I talked about, and if you follow Erica's tutorial, it talks about how to do it. You'd click one here, and it would come up the option to copy to, and you'd copy it to your OneDrive. And then eventually, like most things here, it's a work in progress. So as we start building out this intranet page more, we could have departments have different sub-pages along the left-hand side here. So I had started working on the training department one, so just information that the training department could share with care managers. Again, some links to things, some of the requirements, some of the contacts, and so on. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Colleen, thank you very much. And I really want to thank Colleen, Nancy, Devin, Carlos, everyone, all the care management staff that have been part of the Chromebook work group. I think this is really going to be a great tool and resource for care managers and help with some of the Chromebook challenges that we've had. So in terms of the timeline for actually rolling this out, I do know that there's a couple steps that have to be taken on the IT side, and we will be sending out some detailed instructions to everybody so you can very simply access this platform, and we, certainly let you know who's kind of going to be the administrator of it. And then when you have suggestions for other things that you'd like to see posted, we'll have a process to be able to look at that and then post things that will be helpful.
I mean, this is an example of true teamwork. So I really want to give everybody, applause for this, because really, without the work of the care managers, and unfortunately, we didn't have this with Metasked when we started the Metasked system. But again, I think 4 months in, this is a tremendous thing for the organization about building teamwork and solving problems and making things work. So I really kudos to everybody and the work that's been done here. But this is pretty exciting. So great job, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, Nancy, are you going to continue on with the mandatory trainings? Nancy, are you on?
She might be having trouble with her speaker, so I can start, and if she gets on, she'll take over.
Go ahead, Colleen.
All right, so this information was sent out about the SNAP training, that they'll be holding a second SNAP WebEx for those who aren't able to participate. So just making sure that you get onto SLMS and register for that training. They do have a category called care coordination. So if you go to Find Learning and you sort by that category, then you're able to see some of the trainings that they've posted. I noticed yesterday they posted.
Sorry, I'm okay, everybody. Don't worry about it.
Hi, I'm just checking in. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Nancy.
Okay. All right, so
Everything
I'll continue on. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what was happening with my headset there. So the bottom line about the OPWDD is that they really are putting out new stuff all the time. And I know people are reaching out to me specifically when they struggle with their SLMS. We do have contacts at OPWDD now who have been very resourceful and very helpful to our care managers. So if you continue to struggle, please let me know. If you get, closed out of a training, a new one will be along shortly. We are trying to work, and Lori's been doing this with the collaborative, to get them to post things a little further in advance, and stressing the fact that care managers have appointments. You set up your appointments, your family meetings, and when you find out that there's an OPWDD training the following week, it's just impossible. So these are some of the things that we're continuing to advocate and work with OPWDD for. Okay. Next, Willowbrook, just a reminder, and I think people who have been doing this for a long time are well aware of this, that you need that training. If anyone is newly going to be signed, someone from Willowbrook, they must have the training first before they are assigned a person who is protected by the Willowbrook injunction. In addition, all supervisors of staff who have people with Willowbrook on their caseloads also need to go through the Willowbrook training. I hope to work with Louisa. I'm going to reach out to her and we're going to kind of look at everybody. She's been keeping a good handle on this. So, but keep this in mind. And the next New York Start training, I know we've had quite a few care managers, certainly in the New York City area, participating in these trainings. And to do that, although, if you can get there probably also from Westchester or from Rockland as well, to sign up, go to yi.org, look for the free education trainings. And there's a graphic at the bottom that shows the borderline personality disorder. So please take advantage of these trainings. The one that's coming up on November 16th is being held in 4 different locations, so Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, and Queens. So it looks like a good one. I've participated in a couple. They're very engaging. It is you have to be there live at this time. Okay, next. All right, this is just the, hopefully I wrote the dates quickly. I hope I didn't put any of them incorrectly. But the 2-day trainings, we just had 2 groups this past week, and they were both amazing. We had a lot of participation. So I think people are getting a lot out of these orientation trainings. They are required for all care management staff, whether you transitioned, whether you've been an MSC before for 10 years. We need everyone to come to these orientation. These are the trainings that we have set up at this time, but we are constantly adding more dates. We will communicate as more dates are set up. You should reach out to your regional trainer to do this. Anybody in the North Country is at this point, I think, working with Colleen to get that registration. Sarah and Colleen are working together. And Colleen has the New York City, Scott is in Hudson Valley, Kenya is up in the Capital Region, and Natasha is in Long Island. I think that might be it for me.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Just a quick reminder, Dr. Byron isn't here today, but he wanted me to remind people that he is here as a resource, and his contact information is on this slide, and we'll send out the PowerPoint later on today. But he's available to consult on challenging cases. He can actually assist with some of the paperwork requirements. He also can help with discussions on consent, healthcare proxies, etc. He's here as a resource and absolutely open to assisting. So feel free to reach out to Dr. Byron. Okay, shout outs. So we're going to quickly go through our shout outs. I know we've gone a little bit, we're going over our timeline. We will still continue and try to answer some questions, and for anybody that can stay on longer. Okay, so the first shout out is to Ellie Griffith, actually typo there, for being an amazing support to everyone at the Schenectady site and navigating through the IM assessments. Ellie actually, I know many of you participated in the lessons with Lori, which Ellie was instrumental with really leading and being part of the work that was done behind that. So she helped to develop that training. She's been dedicated to enriching the lives of the people she supports. We're very proud of her, and that is from Tricia Chapman. So thank you, Ellie.
This next shout out is to an amazing group of care manager supervisors, Inez Guzman, Jorge Alcantara, Juan Pena, Jessica Espinal, oh boy, Russ Belliard, and Michelle Patras. I'm sorry if I mispronounced anyone's name, but your hard work does not go unnoticed. Thank you for always having a positive attitude, lending a hand whenever or wherever it's needed, and making sure that care managers feel supported. You are all definitely appreciated, and that's from Jahara German, Care Manager Director.
Okay, the next shout out is to Adelina Escobar and Iju Hamuk, care manager supervisors, and they were both separately supervising a large group, 8+ care managers on their own since the transition. I know they've also had some caseloads, and despite technology and all the challenges and having a full caseload, they persevered, and their work ethics and the way that they conduct themselves are excellent examples of great leadership. Your hard work is greatly appreciated, and this is from Debbie Williams, Care Manager Director.
Okay, to Olga Golubieva, Senior Care Manager, and I don't know if it's Senior Care Manager or Senior Care Manager Supervisor, from Joanne Bates, and also to Deborah Lynch Phillips from Calvin Fraser, for handling crisis situations, assisting families by going above and beyond to access needed supports and services. Thank you.
I just wanted to kind of add on, we had a more detailed, response here for these shout outs, which will be in our next newsletter. But for both, there was a common theme of both going really well beyond the call of duty, helping to support, calm down parents, be with them in the hospital, help to access crisis services and supports, including, in one case, residential. Also really helping to navigate the system, work with the doctors and the hospital staff. So it's also really going beyond the call of duty. Okay, here's our webinar schedule. The next webinar is November 15th, and the rest of the year we have November 29th and December 13th. So certainly winding down the year. And we're on to questions now, which we are going to quickly try to get through as many as we can here. Okay, bear with us while we're looking through them. Okay, let's see, here's a question that if Lisa Reese isn't here, but we'll try to answer it or definitely get the answer back to somebody. This is regarding the time and attendance policy. Our organization had a practice that allowed some people to work from home on a discretionary basis by supervisors. The policy states that those who become employed through the transition will have their policies honored. Our department has a mix of staff. Our practices should be honored to, would our practices be honored to the entire department? I think we need to, look at the specifics behind it. But again, Lisa presented information earlier, as did Jim, really, that there is some flexibility where if you're, beginning the day, ending the day near your home, that you can, if it's going to be, longer to go back into the office, you're closer to home, you can clock out of your last work destination, drive home, clock back in, and do notes or do whatever your work-related tasks are going to be, provided that your supervisor is aware and has approved that. It's a short period of time, and it's not something that is, a full day or a half a day or whatever. So there is some flexibility that we have to do that. And Ann, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I was just going to say for whoever it was submitted, probably that was a supervisor, or you could work with your supervisor to submit that, those specifics to Megan, and then she can respond to what the practice is and what you're exactly talking about. If it's brand new employees to Care Design New York, I believe the committee is leaning towards having some, having those employees get through their provisional period before they're approved to work from home. So if it's brand new, but if you have two groups of staff that transitioned in together, we'd really want to look at that and make sure that we're being consistent at that site and with those same supervisors to the extent that we can. So send those specifics to Megan, and then she can evaluate the answer to that better.
There's a couple questions tied to how long does it take to process travel reimbursement checks? There's reference to just wanting to know what the criteria is.
I think, didn't the finance department just put out a schedule of when they were supposed to be?
I don't think it went out.
I don't think it went out more broadly.
Okay.
It went out to regional directors, but we can look at getting that out more broadly to everybody.
Yeah, so and I didn't look at it closely, I just saw that it was done, because I had done a little reminder to get that out, to what, the period of when you submit things and the period of when they're paid. So we'll make sure that that gets out across the board for people to see, so that you're fully aware of the time period to submit receipts and then the time period of when that'll be reimbursed.
Thank you, Anne. Let's see. So there's reference to the fact that there's a different service authorization form being circulated in different regions of the state. And I can't tell where the staff person is from. It's not saying, but it just says that their DDRO has not started using the revised form. So, you know, we can certainly circle back on that, but for now, we were using those forms as our, you know, point of entry to try to access services. If OPWDD, you know, advises us of, you know, something different, then, you know, we'll let everybody know. But there really should be one standardized form and not 5 different regional office forms. So we'll let you know if we hear anything else. But for now, you know, refer to the memo and, you know, use the forms that we've provided to people.
Is that on our website too? It's one of the things I wanted
they
to
are.
check. So
Yep.
it's on our website.
And it is on our website under, if you go to the provider tab and then you go to care manager resources under that. There's reference to the fact that those forms that we're just talking about for waiver services are hard to edit and to save on the Chromebook. We could try to look and see if we can get something like more in a fillable format with those forms. So thanks for that suggestion. Lori, so this is a question about the IAM application. What if our version isn't correct? I have version 20249.
There's a little bell at the bottom right of your screen. Just click on that and that should update it. It's little teeny tiny.
Okay, here's a question. We need some help to print the IPOP and POMs from the IM assessment to be able to manually add to the life plan.
That request has been put in multiple times, but in the meantime, the only way you could print those preview summary screens is to actually do a screenshot and print it. Otherwise, you have to print, that's the only way you're going to see that preview part.
Here's a question regarding life plans. I have a complete life plan, except that an effective date for a waiver provider defaulted to the start date of the life plan, which isn't correct. Would this be adjustable on the service authorization tab? When will we have access to this tab? So there was reference earlier that there is a meeting next week with OPWDD and the CCOs on service authorization. So we're hoping that, based upon that discussion, that meeting, that we'll have more clarification and direction for all of you on service authorizations and the life plan. Can you please clarify whether or not it is 1 goal or 3 goals required?
Well, you should have 2 POMs, definitely, and it should be a total of 3 goals. But remember, the old adage of a minimum of 1 valued outcome per waiver service still exists. So even if we say a minimum of 3 goals and they're getting 6 waiver services, there should be 6 goals.
Okay, there's a comment that we cannot assign parents to safeguards. This will prevent life plans from being finished. Can this be addressed? And I thought that was addressed.
I thought it had been addressed.
In the update this week, right?
I thought that there was, look for something that says self/parent. I thought that had been added in there, and I thought I saw it. I'll go back and check it again, but we'll get that in there.
That was on the list to be addressed, so we thought that was added in the update.
They said it
this
was
week.
added.
Yeah.
I think it was self and like natural support.
Self and natural support, or self and advocate is how it reads.
Here's another question about the IM. When the new versions of the IM application come out, do the updates to the new version carry over to the older IM assessments that the care managers may be working on?
good question, I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to check into that, to provide further, guidance on that. It's on Lori's list. We have life plans that are over the 45-day mark that need to be finalized and distributed, but cannot without the authorizations, so it's incomplete. What can we do?
Well, like we said earlier, the entire CCO system is kind of halted at that authorization piece right now. In the repeat, we do have a meeting with Metasced and OPWDD on November 5th to lay out some of our issues and to hope get resolution. And once we have that done, hopefully it will break it loose and we'll have guidance for you on how to finish that part.
I would also suggest that we take the, almost fully completed life plan and just, move forward with whatever, with that life plan, knowing that we're gonna have to add in the authorization piece, but we don't wanna, miss any, deadline if it's due for November.
Right, you can take that draft life plan and still have your life plan meeting and reviews and get all your updates done.
Okay, we'll do a few more questions. This is just another comment. Some of the IPOP pieces should not be assigned to providers. I notice there's no option to assign to a natural support. Is there a way around this?
It was supposed to have been added, it would be other, and then self, other, and I'll go back and
it
look.
was literally, if
Yesterday.
it was added, it was like yesterday,
It would have come
wasn't
through yesterday, so maybe just try it again, today.
I know I've seen it. Let me go in and find it again, and I will, send out a note.
Question, if I have an annual schedule for this month, is it too late to start the IM? No, it's not too late to start the IM. I would do it as soon as possible. Question, do November annual meetings need to be completed as life plans? Yes, they do. So ISPs really essentially right now are no longer. We're in a world of life plans. Is that correct, Danielle?
I mean, ISPs are still being considered, considered valid. But at this point, as you have, scheduled annual reviews coming up, we should be moving over into the life plan format. And certainly for any new enrollees, those folks have to immediately go, within the established time frame, but they have to go into a life plan format because we're not developing any new ISPs for people. I think just an important thing, though, to keep in mind, and particularly when you're thinking about your new enrollees, is that, the very first life plan that you develop for a person might not be, the most comprehensive, particularly when they're new enrollees. You're still getting to know each other. You're developing that professional relationship, you're developing that trust. And so, the life plan can always be built upon. I would try not to put an undue amount of pressure on yourself to expect that this is going to be the absolute perfection life plan, So I think it's, we want to see people moving forward with the process, realizing that, maybe the first one isn't going to be the best one, but we're going to keep working at it and perfecting, what we know and hopefully working out glitches in technology so that the next life plan will be, a better version of itself than maybe the initial one.
All right, there's a lot of questions on life plans that we're going to take back and try to put together like a FAQ or some type of response to these, because there's quite a few. And we really don't have time to go through them all now. I know we've gone over our time.
And I know it's hard to keep track. You know, I think we recognize it's hard to keep track. It's been hard for us to keep track, and, you know, OPWDD has been flexible with us around some of these due dates, but, you know, eventually, we can't just keep pushing everything out. And so, you know, we know that there's been a lot of different messaging around when there have been extensions that have been okay. But, you know, really, I think we're down to the point where we have to really start moving forward. So we will, like Megan said, get an FAQ out that'll, you know, really specify that more for people.
One other question that we're going to answer now before we log off is there's a comment about tied to the CAS that previously Medicaid service coordinators were responsible for correcting mistakes that may have been made by the assessors, who will now take on this task, and can there be some ownership placed on assessors this time around? So there is a process outlined on OPWDD's website. If you just go onto it and search under CAS assessment, it'll come up. But essentially, when there's concerns tied to inaccurate information or, you know, some type of problem with the CAS assessment, there is a process, and care managers now take over the role that MSCs used to play, and care managers initiate the point of contact with OPWDD to convey and provide information about the concern. I know that we have had some care managers that have already played this role on behalf of families who have had concerns tied to CAS assessments that have been done in the past. So essentially, the MSC role now becomes the care manager role. Okay, so we will work on getting answers to it. It looks like mostly life plan questions left. So we'll work on putting something together, and we will also send out the PowerPoint. And everybody have a great day. Happy November.
I know.
Bye-bye.